Adventure and Pipeman on W4CY Radio.
This is the Pipeman here on the Adventures of Pipeman W4CY Radio, and I'm here with our next guest that, one of the first songs I ever loved, we're going to talk about here. So let's welcome Bones from Tailgunner. How are you?
Hey, man. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. And, you know, I'm kind of bummed because I was at Download doing interviews in the press area, and I didn't get to catch you guys playing Hit the Lights at Download. I was like, when I saw the video, I'm like, fuck, I missed that? That sucks.
Well, that's the thing with Download is, you know, people say these days, Download doesn't have any heavy metal bands anymore, but they don't look. So thankfully we'll be back next year and maybe we'll play Hit the Lights again.
Okay, well, I'll be there next year, so I'll make sure to not schedule any interviews during your set then, for sure. So I want to know, okay, so you're doing Hit the Lights. It's now going to be on the upcoming album, No Life Til Leather. Let's start with what made you pick Hit the Lights of all the Metallica songs?
It was actually picked for us, I got to admit. We got asked if we wanted to be on the compilation album, and obviously, you know, we said yes. We saw Saxon and Motorhead and so many great bands on there. We were never going to turn it down, you know, and so many great British heavy metal bands. But we got sent the track that we were going to do, and no complaints. I mean, like you say, Hit the Lights, incredible metal tune, and the opener on the album as well. You know, can't get better than that.
I know, right? And I remember, I was there at Metallica's first show. And I remember the first Metal Massacre and hearing that song on there. And I was like, oh my God. Now, like, that's what turned me into a thrash metalhead right there. Before that, it was like Priest and Maiden, and then Metallica and Slayer after that. But, and that brings me to something else, because you guys have a new album as well. And it was produced by KK Downing. How did that happen?
That's a long story, really. I'll condense it down for you. I mean, we put out a debut EP back end of 2022 in December called Crash Dive. It's the first thing we ever released. And somehow, I still don't know who it was, but someone turned KK onto it. I mean, I need to find out who and buy him a beer one day, right? But KK heard this EP and obviously liked what he heard, and we got an invite to open. He was making his big comeback with KK's Priest, the first KK's Priest show at the Steel Mill, KK Steel Mill in Wolverhampton, which is a killer venue in the Midlands. It was Paul Di'Anno as main support, you know, before he passed away, and then KK asked us to open, which was killer. I mean, basically, he said to his manager, like, this new band, Tailgunner, I want them to open this show. And it was only the second time we'd ever supported another band. It was a big deal for us. And things really just exploded from there. And went crazy, really. And we stayed in touch with KK over the next kind of year or so, and his manager, and basically these days we share the entire same team, so we've got all the same people behind us. And when it came time to do this new record, our second record, and we were talking about producers throwing names around, and someone went, well, why don't we just ask KK? And it was like, fuck yeah, that's perfect. Right. And thankfully he was up for it, and we had a blast, man. I mean, just learning so much from, you know, a heavy metal god, really.
And he's the nicest guy in the world too. So like,
he really is. He really is. I mean, we've been lucky enough to tour with some of our heroes and some big bands and all the rest of it. And, you know, you meet some good people, you meet some bad people, but, you know, KK it's true. He's the nicest guy. I mean, forget Dave Grohl. KK is the nicest guy in rock and roll.
I have to agree. And I think Dave is nice too, but I mean, like, KK is just, Here's the thing. I think a lot of icons, not all, but most icons, they have no clue they're icons because they didn't set out to be a rock star. They just wanted to be a musician. And so, like, they're usually the nicest ones and the most humble because they have no clue, in a sense, and it's kind of hard to conceive if you're not that egomaniac, that you're like this metal god. Like, I would put myself in his shoes, and it's like, I'd probably be like, what are they talking about? you know, like you don't really think of it that way.
No, he's a very humble guy. I mean, he'll be telling us stuff about, we'll be in the studio. We were in the studio and he was referring to something Priest did in the 80s, but something super obvious. He'd be like, oh, we had this intro on this album we did, Screaming for Vengeance, called The Hellion. And we're like, yeah, we know Ken. Like,
right. like it's an obscure song by some band nobody knows. And I think that's cool when bands, they start out obscure that nobody knows, but then they keep that same mindset the whole time, Well,
the big thing is as well, I mean, how many guys from that generation are actively interested in new heavy metal and seeking
right?
Supporting it? I mean, I can't name really too many people, and that's why, to me, he is like the true defender of the faith, because he's fucking out there and keeping it alive and promoting new bands.
I love hearing that. And it's so true. As somebody that is OG from the 80s time, the only reason I probably know all the newer bands that I do, and I know a lot of them, is because of what I do. Because I talk to my old school friends that I went to shows with in the 80s, and I'm like, oh, you got to listen to this band. And the problem was back then, to be honest, we were such fucking stupid gatekeepers that God forbid anything new should come along after the 80s. Like my friends from way back, they still kind of think, oh, there's no good band since the 80s. And I'm like, yeah, I'll show you a few bands that'll blow you away.
Yeah. The thing is as well, these days, it's almost, I mean, you've obviously always have the legends, Priest, Motorhead, Maiden, all the rest of them. But there's a whole wave, I think, since probably the mid 90s onwards, bands almost have to be better playing old school heavy metal than a lot of what was around in the kind of, say, the lower tiers of bands, the lesser known bands back in the 80s, because it's harder to prove themselves, because so many like kids these days just want to listen to metalcore, or the older crowd from back in the day, they have to be, like you say, even more convinced, because it's like it's these fucking kids playing like what we did 40 years ago. You know what I mean? So I feel like you actually have to work even harder, and that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
Well, it's definitely true, because it's like, all right, so you take bands like Metallica and Slayer. There was nobody else to compare to before them, And then the best I think of is Venom.
Yeah.
So back then they were like, they considered themselves the only black metal band, and blah, blah, and I love them. Okay. But it's so funny because black metal bands today would never consider Venom black metal. And even now, for me, all these years later, like I remember getting Welcome to Hell, like when it first came out. It was an import, and I was literally scared when I listened to it for the first time, because there was nothing else like it, like that. And I'm reading the lyrics and stuff, and now I listen to those same songs, and I'm like, sounds kind of poppy now. And that's why I dig you guys too, because you kind of have that old school feel with new metal, not genre new metal, but today metal, type of modernization, I think, is the way I look at it. It's like you're the best of both worlds.
Well, that's it. I mean, we don't really try to play, quote unquote 80s metal. We just play heavy metal. We don't deep it too much, because there's a whole scene of bands around these days in the underground that it's like, if it doesn't sound, and I'm talking in terms of the production, if it doesn't sound like a demo from 1982, then it isn't cool. And like, I love that, and I love those bands, and I kind of love that mindset. But at the same time, like, we're trying to build a career, so it's like, yeah, we are in a position now, and being with Napalm Records and things, and obviously working with KK, he's not going to let us have shitty sounding drums on a record, or you know what I mean? It's like we have access to. We're still doing everything the old school way, but the thing is, for me, and I've said this before, in the 80s, a lot of those guys were pushing the envelope. So these days we can look back and go, oh, it sounds so old school, it sounds so vintage. But you look at, okay, extreme example, but Def Leppard on Hysteria. That was like the cutting edge of technology. And I think it's actually an important thing, and Priest did that a lot. They were always looking to do something new and fresh. And we look at, if they didn't have that attitude, you would never have had Painkiller. And that's exactly what we're trying to do as well, is still play heavy metal the old school way, the coolest way, but try and push the envelope and take it further and take it to the next thing. So it's not just about sounding like it's from 1982,
See, and I love that attitude, because that is what it's all about. We don't need to regurgitate everything. That was the beginning, and you do need to evolve. Doesn't mean that's not an influence, but it's not like, it's not like Slayer set out to sound like Priest or Maiden, but when Slayer first started, that's what they did, is Priest and Maiden cover songs and stuff like that. Tom didn't even know what heavy metal was when he joined Slayer. So and then I love your attitude, because there are a lot of bands that I see that almost nowadays follow this like formula, like an algebraic equation to make the metal. And that's weird to me, because you go back then, there was no equation. And in fact, if you talk to a lot of the artists, okay, like James, he talks about how Seek and Destroy is played at the San Jose Sharks game, but he's like, I don't understand why they play the original version. Like the one I redid is much better, because my voice sucked then. But then you take somebody like me, old school, that I love that original raw James voice, but I also know that he's an artist that has to progress and get better at his craft and evolve. So I like the new voice too, and it's kind of, you can't stay in one place is the point. And so even the 80s bands, if they're staying in one place, they didn't make it past the 80s. Metallica evolved. We didn't like it back then. The gatekeep, posers, sellouts, blah, blah, blah. But you can't deny the Black Album, even though at first we were all, oh, that's a piece of shit, they suck. But you can't deny how great that album is. And without it, you guys probably wouldn't be doing a compilation album of Kill 'Em All if it weren't for the Black Album. Probably nobody would even remember.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, heavy metal is not supposed to have rules,
Right?
It's so unmetal to say it has to be done this way, or it's not true metal. It's like, no, fuck off. It's true metal because we say it's true metal.
Right, and it's because it's a passion. It's like too. I'll talk to people and they're saying, well, I used to like metal. And I'm like, you were never into metal if you say you used to like metal. Doesn't matter where you went in life, how old you are, like, it's part of you. It's different, I think, than a lot of other music. Punk and metal is more of an identity and music opposed to just music.
That's why the fans are so loyal as well.
Yeah.
When you look at like Motorhead, I mean, if Lemmy was alive now, they'd still be around. But it's why a lot of these bands, they can have one hit and it doesn't fucking matter in metal. It doesn't matter if you never have a charting hit or a breakthrough or get played on the radio. I mean, Iron Maiden are one of the biggest bands in the world, and they've never really been a chart band.
Right? No.
I mean, in the UK, they had one #1 single, which was "Bring Your Daughter to the Slaughter," which it's a fun song, but like as far as like actual Maiden fans go, like who really gives a shit,
Right, totally. And part of the charm for metal was always that too. That's why you got into it, and that's why you had a passion for it. We're like one big family. That I always laugh because I do all these festivals, I do interviews, and I'll laugh with some of the artists that we're interviewing. It's like they'll say, yeah, let's keep people thinking we're scary. You know, it's like people think we're so scary, and like you go to a metal show and it's just one big family and everybody's there for each other and there are no outsiders. And that's what I love about metal today, because it wasn't like that in the 80s. It was bullshit in the 80s sometimes. You know, it was like, you know, if you showed up to a Slayer show with a Motley Crue shirt on, somebody would rip that shirt off your back and throw it up to Tom and he'd burn it on stage and you were like an outcast. But you know what? That was bullshit. You know, I thought it was cool when I was a teenager, and now I realize it was just bullshit. You know? So what got you into metal originally?
Fuck. I mean, I remember coming home from school as a kid, and we had watched the School of Rock movie. If you remember, that was Jack Black. And
totally.
To be honest, watching the movie, it didn't really have much of an impact on me. But I got they played the riff to Smoke on the Water in the movie, and I remember coming home from school, and like none of my family are really into metal, or you know, but my dad's into music, and I was just singing this riff, just humming the Smoke on the Water riff. He goes, if you like that, you should fucking check this out. And he sat me down with a pair of headphones and put on the Back in Black album, and like, oh man, as soon as I heard Brian Johnson sing, it was like that fucking moment in The Wizard of Oz. I mean, I've heard Ozzy say about it, but it's like the world went into color. And I mean, literally from that fucking moment as a kid until now, I'm exactly the same person. Do you know what I mean? And that same night then, I heard Guns N' Roses and AC/DC and the Pistols for the first time, and just totally blew my mind. And that was it. That was just it. I was away at the races.
It's kind of how it works, right? There's that one time and you're just like, I saw Motley Crue live at the Roxy before they had an album. It was the first club show I ever went to. And like, they weren't hair metal yet. They were horror punk at that time. And I remember going to that club show. I'm like, I'm never going to a real concert ever again. Like, it was the most amazing experience, you know, and it ended up every Friday and Saturday night. That's what I was doing all through high school, you know, and it's funny you mentioned Smoke on the Water, because I wonder if guitarists are picking up a guitar for the first time now to learn guitar, if they have the same thing, and I highly doubt they do. When I was a teenager, the first song you ever were taught to play on guitar, everybody, was Smoke on the Water.
I think it's still pretty much the same. I mean, I can't speak for kids now, but bands don't really write riffs like that. I mean, new style of bands. I mean, I saw a fucking like a reel on Instagram the other day, and it was a guitar player saying, how did we end up at this? And he was playing like a modern metal chuggy riff, when he's like, but 40 years ago we had riffs like this, and he's playing like Lay It Down by Rat, you know, and they just no one really, I say no one, we do, because I gotta fucking push my band, but no one writes riffs like that anymore. Well,
that's why they have to check out your version and Hit the Lights, and you know, obviously get the album No Life Till Leather, but more, and also get the album Midnight Blitz, because then they could see what you're about. Because I watched the video of you doing, even though I was there, I watched the video of you guys doing Hit the Lights at Download, but then I pulled up your newest video and I was like, now they're badass. Because that's when you really tell if a band's badass, when you hear what they do with their own music, because that's them being totally them. And so everybody definitely has to check you guys out. Tell everybody how they reach you on socials, how they get the new album, and, you know, check tour dates, buy merch, all that good stuff.
Whatever's easiest for them. I mean, if you search Tailgunner on Google, we'll come up. So that's all they need to do. If they search us on YouTube, we'll be there. And if they want to buy our album, whatever way that they would normally go and grab an album, they'll find it.
Nice. Well, I look forward to seeing you at Download next year. And maybe you'll be at Bloodstock too, because I'm also at that one. And I think you guys would be great at that one. That's a killer festival. And thanks for being on the Adventures of Pipeman.
Thanks for having me, dude. Good to speak to you.
Same.
Thank you for listening to the Adventures of Pipeman on W4CY Radio.